I think it's really common, not just professionally, but also I think about with kids' ages. I know for me, when my kids get to different ages, it requires different transitions inside of me, different things I have to grow up in, learn. Like my son that's 11, kind of that preteen stage, there's a very different way that I have to engage with him as a dad than I do my 8 or my 4 year old. And I have to transition into a different part of myself and almost mature and grow. So I do want to talk about transitions for a while and maybe just have you share a little bit of your story of the transition you recently went through and some of the really difficult moments of that, some of the scary moments of that, what you learned. And we'll just riff off to this for a little bit.
Yeah, so I guess in a nutshell, I had been at CBRE close to 20 years, almost 19 years to the day, and candidly, the company felt like it was time to make a transition in leadership in Arizona, and so just full disclosure, and I said, "All right, I've been given this opportunity. How do I want to approach it?" I was leading 600 people. Business was good, but they felt like a change in direction was needed. And so I said, okay, maybe this is giving me the opportunity, let's call it at the midpoint of my professional career, to really evaluate and think about like, what am I doing that I enjoy? What do I not enjoying? And so it really forced me to evaluate who I am, what I want out of life personally and professionally. And it really forced some hard conversations with my wife, with my kids, with myself, with others to really evaluate those things. Candidly, you had asked me those questions a couple years ago
Mm.
when I didn't really need to think about them. And I really struggled with, I remember struggling with those answers.
Yeah.
Now I was thrust into this opportunity, ultimately, is how I looked at it to really evaluate what do I want out of life. And so I took 9 months to really evaluate what those things are. I took the first 5 months to do nothing but spend time with my kids and my wife and travel Europe and go see places we had never seen before. And so, really creating some life experiences and just taking a breath. So
Mm.
often we don't get the opportunity to do that. And so I was like, well, shoot, I've got this opportunity. I'm not going to squander it. So
Yeah.
let's go have some fun with it and go from there.
Mm. You had, I think about your transition, Paul, and sometimes we as people feel like we get to choose our transitions. We're like, okay, I want to choose where my kids go to school. I want to choose where we want to move. But I do think as much as we choose those things, there's things happening inside of our heart, inside of our marriage, inside of our culture and our ecosystems that like force us in some of those changes. And your change wasn't necessarily because of some prompting inside of you. Like, how was that harder for you to maybe think through? Like, I wasn't ready for this. Like, this wasn't what I was, anticipating or what I wanted. But how did that change the way you approached how you thought about what was next?
Yeah. As someone who I think it's natural, right? As someone who likes to be in control and to some degree determine outcomes, not being in control was an uncomfortable feeling at the beginning for sure. But I'm by nature an optimist and a forward-looking person, and so I would say it took me a couple of days um, to really come to terms with the reality of where I was. But I quickly had some harsh conversations with myself that, like, look, I can sit here and wallow and be sad and be upset and things like that. But I was like, what good is that gonna do? And so, like, let's take this opportunity as an adventure and as
Mm,
just that, an opportunity to be like, what do
mm,
I want out of life? And so I would say it took some people around me a little bit longer to accept that reality of what had occurred. But I was just like, there's no sense in looking in the rearview mirror. Like, let's go have some fun with this and go do
mm-hmm,
something great that really aligns with who I am and what I want to do. And
Mm,
so I think once and there were some folks around me that really helped me get the mental closure that I think I needed to really pivot forward and
yeah.
really look at the road ahead rather than reflecting on the past. And that's when this like light inside of me really started to come alive. You know what I mean?
Mm. So let's talk about that. I want to give, some color to just your story here off the front end because I think it's a really beautiful, you've transitioned really beautiful between these two states. Not perfectly, none of us do, but I think you have gone through the grief process. You felt what you needed to feel. You were scared, you're afraid, you're confused, you're excited, you're hopeful. It's kind of all over the place in those transitions. Um, and I just want to ask, like, what were some of the hardest moments in that transition, and what were some of the most beautiful silver linings in that?
Um, I think certainly the most difficult transition was getting the news that I was going to be moving on, and then calling my wife and letting her know that we were going to go on a little adventure together. That was certainly a low point. And I think it was just the uncertainty. Like I, I, I think I pride myself on being a bit of a planner, and having like good intuition about how things are going to play out.
Yeah.
And there were certainly a lot of moments over this last 9 months where I had no idea what the outcome was going to be. And
Mm,
truth be told, I don't know that I was ever really focused on the destination. I was really focused on like what was important to me about what I wanted, what I didn't want, what I liked, what I didn't like, and then use that as a lens to like start to make some decisions about what the right path is for me. I would say one of the challenging points, and I remember this distinctly, was we had just planned a trip to Europe with our kids for the first time in probably in May. And so when work happened, I remember telling my wife, we just need to cancel our Europe trip. Like we have too much uncertainty. I don't know
mm,
what the future is going to hold. I don't know how this is going to play out. We should not go. And she's like, really? If you say so, let's hunker down. I had 10 of my closest friends rally around me and be like, dude, you're never going to have this
mm,
opportunity again to go travel with your kids and experience something like that for the first time for them, without having to worry about work at all.
mm.
And you've been prudent financially over the years for times like this. So take the opportunity and go do it. I promise you, you won't regret it. Guess what? They were 100% right. And
Mm,
so for me, traveling Europe with my kids, um, taking them to school every day, almost the entire school year, picking them up from school almost every single day, um, helping with homework, driving to practice, like doing things that I got to do occasionally, but I didn't get to do certainly as much as I did over this last 9 months. That is a period I will never ever
mm,
forget. Going to
mm.
lunch with my wife in the middle of the workday, like, hey, let's go to lunch today. Great. Um, those were things that I probably wouldn't have been able to do had this not occurred. And so as I've started to make this transition into my next chapter, um, those are things that need to become part of, those are things that are just part of who I am and need to remain, whether I'm working or not, which I am. Um, but like, I need to make time for those things. I
Yeah.
need to make time for myself. And those are things that I don't know that I did um, over the prior 10 to 12 years. It was all
Yeah.
about work. I think, and like I was related to this notion of transition and the right time. I mean, you asked me a couple of years ago, like, what would life outside of this work look like to you?
I did not
And
mean to foreshadow anything
I
on
and
that.
I owe it all
Other
to you.
than yeah, exactly. I got the wheels spinning in that direction.
Well, you did, but I would say I really struggled with that,
Mm,
because I don't think I really knew what I wanted, right? And so when you don't really know what's important to you or what you want or who your tribe is,
Yeah.
and you can describe them, like I think as a result, you become sedentary and you're like, well, this is comfortable. Like things are good, I think, because you don't have anything to like weigh it against, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have, I talked about this notion of like a filter, right? To run opportunities and ideas through. If you haven't identified what are the things that are most important to you, values wise, what are the things you like? What are the things you don't like,
Mm,
enjoy, don't enjoy? The type of people you want to surround yourself with. If you haven't done that work on the front end, um, it is so natural to just be busy,